Kia ora, tēnā koutou katoa, no mai haere mai. Welcome to season 2 of the Powher podcast. We're kicking off with a bang in this season because we are kicking off with the amazing Cassie Roma, who has joined us. So for those that don't know Cassie, and I'm kind of like, how can you not? She is an internationally acclaimed and awarded advertising executive, an expert in brand building, social and digital storytelling. But you might know her for her TV stuff. So there's a lot of it. She's well known, particularly for being an advisor on the Apprentice Aotearoa. She's also known, and I love this bit, as the kindness warrior. When she's not on TV, she is an author, a podcaster, a documentarian, a sought-after inspirational speaker, life and career coach, and part of the TEDx alumni. Cassie, it is an absolute pleasure to have you here on the show today. Welcome.
Thank you for having me. When you hear other people read your bio back, that's an interesting moment of silence to sit in.
It is, right? Especially for us here in Aotearoa, we're not used to people talking about all of our achievements, especially to our face when we're sat there. It can feel both illuminating and reflective, but also a little bit uncomfortable, I find at times.
Isn't it amazing? That's one of the things that I want to work on, especially in the next year, is unpacking the 20 years of tall poppy in my head, and then all of the societal things around not shining or humility being not being able to stand tall in your achievements. But thank you for reading those. I feel really empowered and ready to chit chat now.
It's all facts, right? That's the thing. You touched on such a good point there, though, because I think so many of us, particularly wahine and our underrepresented groups, struggle with this. You know, we shine in the world, but it's almost like, do we have permission to shine in the world? Can we shine in the world? And how do we be comfortable when we're making these achievements, particularly in this tall poppy society? How do we get comfortable with that? And I'm interested because you've done so many amazing things and you've reached so many pinnacles of career highlights and defining moments. And I'm just wondering, how do you get to a space where you're able to be comfortable with that and own those achievements and be able to shine in a society where that's not always encouraged?
Oh, that's a big question. This could take days to unpack. I think the simplest answer is, if I think back to childhood and I think back to the ways in which my parents and my family defined success and defined connection and legacy and all of those things, it was all wrapped in this, what you and I are doing right now, either one-on-one or in groups, hearing each other, seeing each other. So for me, success has never been that to be acclaimed. It hasn't been the awards. In fact, there was about a decade in my career in advertising and marketing where I just refused to go to an award ceremony because it just felt it wasn't aligned with my idea of what made me a good, successful person. So hearing those things back, I'm kind of like, wow, that's cool. I did do that. But I'm also one of those people where success for me is coming home and laughing with my partner. It's knowing my daughter is happy and thriving. It's giving my mom a call on the phone and knowing that the people who I work with and help feel empowered and emboldened. So yeah, it's nice to kind of hear the laundry list of things that I've done, but also it's just kind of like a life well lived in chasing curiosity.
Yeah. And you've done that so well. And I love that you've focused on that. And as a result, the awards have come anyway, whether you've wanted them or not, right? And I think that when we are in this space of being true to ourselves, being able to define our own success, then all of that other stuff kind of follows along as a kind of unintended consequence, if you like. When you reflect on your journey, what have been some of the defining moments? What have been the big things that have kind of got you to where you are today or made you the person you are today? And I appreciate, that's a big question too, right? We're starting off with the big questions.
Yeah, I think, some of the main things that, and I'll hearken this right back to childhood. So you can tell from my accent, I did not grow up in Aotearoa, New Zealand. But I spent my childhood split between San Diego, California, which is, a big city, millions of people, and then a small town in the middle of nowhere, Missouri, with 222 people at its thriving largest point of population. And I think the dichotomy between very small town and poverty, and then big city, fast moving California, really embedded in me this idea of it didn't matter if you were in the lights of Hollywood or you were covered in cow poo because you were throwing it at your cousins on the farm. The ways in which you comported yourself was the most important way to move through life. So as I move through life and I look at my achievements, I think the biggest things have been the moments in which I have stepped into my own journey. And those have been the hardest moments and the hardest lessons. You know, other people kind of have our journeys mapped out for us, but it's been the moments in which I've gone, actually, that's someone else's map. That's someone else's achievement. I don't want to do that. And so I think the first thing was coming to New Zealand. So I turned 21 on a Kentucky tour in Europe and fell for the tour guide. And that's how I ended up in New Zealand to begin with. And when I got here at 22 years old, 21 years ago, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I didn't know who I wanted to be. I still don't. That's the beautiful thing. But what I always have done really well is just follow my curiosity. I've always had this thing about how do people connect, especially as an expat. And I bet you'd feel this too, and an import to a country that's so far away. And before social media, even further away. How can I connect with people? What do I need to do to find community? And then how do I imbue stories and creativity into all of that? So I say I was an accidental marketer, and that is so true. Because, you know, after a couple years here, my ex-husband and I had our daughter, and I needed to make money. And marketing felt like this really cool way to exercise the strategic side of my brain, the innovative side of things, because social media was just being born. And this American accent kind of gave me the social clout to go, oh yeah, I can do that. Sure, I'll try it. And then the creative side of things. And it was going, wow, okay, how do these things fit together? And I think everything I've done has been a how does this fit together moment. So whether it was my first role in marketing or moving into a phase of my career in which I felt emboldened and confident enough to write my own jobs and roles and to proactively go to businesses and say, you need this at your business and I'm going to help you. And to face people who looked back at me and go, well, if I do this, I'm taking a punt. So you have to prove yourself every day. And then to be as a woman who then came out later in life, the biggest moments of achievement have always come off the back of uncertainty and feeling not only stuck, but in a place where I wasn't growing. And so every time I felt like, okay, this isn't a challenge for me anymore. Comfort is not comfortable for me. I would then go, what's the next thing? Where can I add value? How do I connect to people? And that's how my life and my career has been navigated. So completely haphazardly, but obviously the universe has had my back.
Yeah. And I think you're talking to that evolution. I think sometimes there's this myth that we have to have it all figured out, that there's a plan that we follow and we need to know where that plan ends and we achieve all our goals and we live happily ever after. And yeah, as you've so beautifully described, so often it's those ups and downs, those life lessons that are leading us into those moments and developing those expertise. And we kind of figure it out as we go along. And I think there's a tendency for people to look to the likes of yourself and go, well, she's made an amazing success of her life. She's obviously got it all figured out. And so it's so refreshing to hear you say, I'm still figuring it out. And that's normal. That's how we kind of evolve and tell our stories. And it doesn't finish yet, right? Especially not at our age, because we've still got another half of our life or more to live.
Gosh, I'd hope it's not. Yeah, I hope I'm not at any echelon. I always like to think that figuring things out is the way. And we talk about being woke, but I always like to say I'm waking. And for the entire rest of my life, I hope I am still waking up and waking up and waking up. And as long as I get to be around good people and to serve others and to live a life that feels big and juicy and creative and is aligned with my morals and ethics and integrity, then I can't think of a life better lived, because that puts me in a place of becoming what I want to become. And that is a better ancestor.
Yeah. And that's a really beautiful example of you knowing who you are and being true to yourself. You mentioned other people's maps. And I think so often we can get caught up in that trap of, there's who we are and then who we feel we should be. And how have you managed to stay true to you throughout all those ups and downs? And when you have found yourself, being pushed more towards other people's maps or versions of who you should be?
Oh, I'll be completely honest. People pleaser since way back. Eldest daughter, Catholic upbringing, all of the things. It's been the moments in my life that have felt the most uncomfortable, where I've had to go, why? Why do I feel so abjectly uncomfortable in my life right now? And it has been the realization every single time that I'm not being true to myself, and not in a selfish way. I would love, and I do live my life in service of others, or in hopeful service of others. But I didn't know until even a few years ago what it meant to live in service of myself at the same time. And I know it's a cliche. It's that Brene Brown, the middle-aged unraveling, we'll call it, where you have to sit in grief and change and loss and everything to realize, oh my gosh, I maybe lost myself there along the way, and then start to figure out who you are again. So it's more of a recent thing for me to sit in that kind of confident knowing of who I am and what I want, and knowing that I move with good intent, and how other people perceive me, I hope is good. But if it's not, that's okay too.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, from a people pleasing perspective, I can certainly resonate with that, as many others listening in will too. There is this tendency often to want to be liked by everyone and do the right thing. And that can so often take us away from that stuff that is authentic. And I loved the service of self and others at the same time, because I think particularly for women, we're really good at putting service for others first, and potentially not then service for ourselves. And you talked earlier about proving yourself, and I think that again is something that so often we're having to work twice as hard to prove ourselves, not just because of the systems we're in, but also some of that self-doubt that plagues our mind and the people-pleasing tendencies. How do you handle the pressure of life and staying grounded, particularly when you're so busy and pulled in different directions and doing so many things, and often in the public eye as well, which I think adds an extra element of pressure to what life generally is?
It goes back to the firm foundational element of trusted beloveds and community. And one of the things I learned too in that great unraveling of my life a few years ago was, wow, I have built a really lovely network of friends and colleagues and acquaintances, and just so many people that I know and love and can hug and all of that kind of stuff. But when it came down to it, what I realized is I have a really small core group of people who, when I am on the floor and can't pick myself up, will show up. And it was taking that knowledge and finding the beauty and the bigness in a smaller circle that helps me to navigate, to stay grounded. When it comes to the public stuff and the perception stuff, the hardest thing for me in the last couple of years, to be fair, has been to just turn to the people I love the most and be gritty and raw and authentic and real, and say, I am struggling. Today has been a shit show in my head, and I don't know why. The sun is shining, the birds are shining. I'm happy. I've got a full tummy. I've got love. I've got family, but I'm feeling a certain way, and just being able to talk it out with trusted people. So that kind of grounding is really, really important. And when it comes to the public eye and perception, you speak a lot in public. I speak a lot in public when it comes to TV and podcasts and all of the other media that you're involved in and I'm involved in as well. It's hard because that part of it for me is really authentic, but it's also very performative. So over the last week and a half alone, I've spoken in front of like 2,000 diverse women in different settings, and the questions, the stories they tell to me afterwards, these beautiful taonga that they imbue upon me as their stories, as a holder of those. It's heavy, and there's still a performative element about that. So, I came home from a big speaker series last night, and I was wiped, and, I came off the plane feeling hugely excited and proud and connected. And the second I saw my partner, I just fell in her arms weeping, and it's having that safe space to just weep and release, to be able to stay grounded and to continue doing the things that I do.
Yeah. And you're so right. I think sometimes it's the biggest gift that we get to do the job that we do, and it comes with, in terms of that energy exchange and the people that we're privileged to meet and then hold space for and share stories with and of. Think the support is so key. And yet it can be difficult sometimes and courageous to ask for help when we need it. And we're not always good at that. Particularly, even when we do have the support around us, there's a different thing than accessing that and actually admitting, I'm not the strong one all the time. I do need a bit of support. And I think, you mentioned the great unraveling. And I think, certainly it resonates for me. I'm sure many others have had their version of an unraveling in their life, maybe are in one right now. And I love that when we talk to people that are out the other side, so often the recurring theme is, this has gotten me to where I am today. This has taught me so much. And without it, I would not be the person I am today. And although it's terrible at the time, and there's probably 50 million other ways we'd rather get to the point that we are now than go through that, it almost seems like it's part of our lives to have those struggles, to then create the people that we're capable of growing into as a result of surviving said struggles.
Well, that's it, right? We can conceptualize, we can logic things out. And even in the middle of a hard time, you can go, I know this is going to turn into a lesson, but I'm tired of the lessons. Can't I just have it? Can't you just hand it to me? And then you come out the other end and go, oh, the lesson I thought I was learning wasn't the lesson. Oh, and then you're like, okay. My best friend and I always talk about like the importance of patience. So we even have like our little cards that we pull every day. And we kept pulling patience for weeks and weeks. And we're like, we are so impatient with patience right now. Can we just get on with things and not have to be patient anymore? And it's like, oh, that's the point. Okay.
Here's the lesson. Do you have any kind of non-negotiable habits or rituals, the things that really kind of keep you at your best and the things you rely on to get through some of those tough times? We've talked about support and the people around us. Is there anything you specifically kind of rely on habit-wise, ritual-wise that helps see you through?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, for people who are out in the public eye and who do work for others and are seen as kind of leaders or figures who can get up and confidently speak in front of crowds, we're seen as extroverts. But I myself at my core am an introvert. I am an introvert and I love being around people, but I need time on my own and in my own head. But I'm also a late to lifer on this ADHD spicy brain buzz. And now I realize that the reason I have never liked meditation and I can't sit in meditating, I need to do active meditation. So another thing that I have to do without fail is move my body and feed myself with good food, nutritious food. Those are my non-negotiables. There's a little bit of time in my head each day and then moving my body and then feeding myself with good nutrition, because if I do those things and then bonus sleep well, then I can show up for myself and for others. When I don't do those things, I can be a real grump, and I just don't like feeling that way. I like to feel good and healthy when I wake up. So those are big things, and I'm really lucky. My partner's very, very similar, and she's even much more knowledgeable than I am when it comes to like the physiology of nutrition and sport exercise. But having somebody alongside me that knows that's a thing and doesn't weaponize, because I think sometimes people can weaponize your needs and your boundaries and push back against them. And it's hard to stand in them, even if they seem simple, like exercising. So having somebody, a friend or a colleague or somebody who builds you up is really important.
Yeah. Oh, so true. And I think you hit the nail on the head then when you talked about, this is stuff that we do for us. So if we know what we need and we have the courage to ask for it or to do it, and yet so often we can be made to feel that that's selfish or wrong or that you should be putting others first. And yet the irony in all that is that we are better for others when we do the stuff that we know helps us. And you touched on some really, really great examples there. What are you up to? So what's happening in your life right now? What's next for you? What are you doing that people might be interested to get involved in? And how can we find you?
Oh, Lordy. The last year in itself has been a whirlwind. So my best friend and creative partner, Mandy Coupe, and I have released our 3-part docuseries called Heal the Hauraki. We thought we were like really, really clever little cats because we're like, we're going to make a documentary, but really what we're going to do is create a movement and utilize all of our corporate skills to build a community that's existing and ongoing around embedding Mātauranga Māori to help heal Te Taio, the natural world. And we're starting with the Hauraki Golf. So that is out and just starting to pick up steam, which is amazing. So get on board with healthehauraki.com. Other than that, I'm actually picking up traction again. I took a little break from corporate coaching during the unraveling because I needed to sit and coach myself a little bit. But I'm back in coaching, and it's one of the most fulfilling things that I've ever done in my life. And again, it was an accident that came out of COVID. But just speaking mostly with women around their career. And we talked about it all the way at the beginning of our conversation about who we are and our accolades. And it's taking these amazing high-flying executive women who have the pay packet, the team, the title, the house, the car, the everything. And they are just so unable to reach satisfaction in their lives and to find true joy. And it's helping them find that. What's the next step? So that's on. And then all of this, the speaking, I love getting up in front of people and just giving. Like I've had 22 years now in corporates. And I always think if I was in this room, what are the little key things? What are the nuggets, the secrets that I'd want to know? And I just give them away. I feel like Robin Hood. Like I've taken from the corporates and I'm just giving it away. So all of that kind of stuff is happening. And then also I'm working with a group called Ginger's Lesbian Pop-Ups all across Aotearoa. We're looking at moving into Australia, perhaps into Europe also, top secret. And we're just hooning in with our podcast as well. Just doing what you're doing, sharing more stories of women, people with diverse backgrounds, and just celebrating who we are as a community.
Fabulous. Oh, such great work that you're involved in. How can people find you? Where's the best place? If people are listening in and like, yes, I definitely need to track you down. Where's the best place for them to find you?
Hit me on the Instagram. You can go to my old school OG, www.cassieroma.com. I'm pretty easy to find. Just Google me.
Fabulous. Hey, Cassie, it has been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for coming on the show, for chatting with us today. I've really enjoyed your wisdom, hearing your story. And I think there's so much in there that I can imagine people nodding along and listening to this and taking some real gold out of this. So thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.